Completely hands-on. We are
Yes. So is it visible?
yes, yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So as Shiblu sir explained the Docker Compose, Docker Swarm very nicely, so I'm not going to explain that anymore. So I'm just going to deploy it using Docker Compose and Docker Swarm. So there is some prerequisite for that. The first prerequisite for that is Dockerize the backend application of the product application. So first we need to Dockerize the backend and then Dockerize the front end of the product application. That
So
means we need to backend and
it means the Docker file, right?
yes, we need to Dockerize it, Docker image. We need that for our Docker Compose. So in our last deployment scenario, we can see we have just deployed the Docker image and push that image in our server. We can go to our Docker Hub repository. Here you can see that we have two images. One is ecom frontend im and ecom back im. That means ecom backend image and ecom frontend image. So we will be using these two images, which we just now push in our Docker Hub account. So let's go to the slide again. So this is the mainly roadmap of our installation process and creating Docker Compose file. And then we will run that Docker Compose file. And after completing the Docker Compose one, we'll down the Docker Compose and we'll then activate the Docker Swarm to see and to watch that how Docker Swarm works with the stack.yml file. So let's begin. For that, we'll be using another instance because as you all know that we have created all this deployment in one server, but now we will show you that how we can use those images in another server. So let's go to our instance list first. Now click on the launch instance button. Here we'll give it a name. Suppose as we are using it for Docker, so I'm naming it as Docker and choosing the IMA machine image as Ubuntu as previous, and configuration will be T2 medium. That will be enough for us. And now we can use the previous key pair and also we can create a new one. So let's use the previous one, which is ecom, which is already created for another server. We can use that key pair. Now I'll edit this and here it will be all traffic from anywhere
We're
and
allowing
configuration, yes, and configuration storage will be 30 GB. So that's all the configuration. Now we will click on the launch instance button as like previous. So if you reload it, we can see it is state is pending. So it needs 30 seconds to be activated. So if you reload it again,
you cannot, yeah, you have to wait until it is running.
yeah.
And then this table pretty much shows all the details. Make sure it is not super complex, but it is straightforward.
Okay, now we can see that it is running. So again, we can take the public IP address and we can connect it using SSH. And here we will attach the key. So it is like the previous one. I'm using the previous SSH key. So I'll accept it. So first thing first, I'll clear the board. So let's clear it. Let's increase the font a little bit. Okay, now I need to update the environment as I did before, sudo apt update. Now I will install docker.io, sudo apt install
So in
Docker.
Linux operating system, as mentioned, the by default you cannot do anything. You have to always do the sudo. So sudo means super is the do, then the of course remaining command. That's the reason you see this. Typically everything is locked, and locked means you cannot install. As an ordinary user, you cannot install or uninstall any application. So again, it is not over complex. It is simple things. To install or uninstall or do any administrative the work configuration, you always have to do the sudo.
Okay, now we have to give a permission to our Docker Compose file. For that, the command is sudo chmod. Chmod is for giving the permission, plus x, that means it is giving the executable permission, and the file is located in user local bin folder. There is a file called Docker Compose, so we are giving the permission to that file. So let's hit enter. Now, if we have to check that it is installed successfully or not, for that we can do Docker Compose, then the version. We can check it through it. Yes, we can see it is showing its version. That means it is installed in our server successfully. Now, as in the theory part, it explained very clearly that for Docker Compose, we will be using a Docker Compose YML file. So we have to create one. First let me check there is any Docker Compose file there or not. We can see there is no Docker Compose file. So now we will be creating one. So vim docker compose.yml, compose.yml. Here we'll write down our script for running two services. One is ecom back and another one is ecom front. So for that we have to write down. So I'm just copying all of them from the slide. And here in the slide, there are some images used, but our images is not like this one. So we need to correct it. Like we need to change the image name. So let's see from our repository, what is our image name? So here we can see our image name is ecom front im. That is for frontend. Ecom front im. So our version is v1, but you can check it also. Like if you click on that, and here you can see tags. Here all the version will be seen, or all the tags will be seen. Like v1, if we tag it as a v2, here you will be seeing the v2. So that's how you can check. So this is our front-end image name. Now we have to change our back-end image name. Let me check once what it is. Okay, it is ecom back im. So I'm writing ecom back im. And the port for backend is 5000 and for frontend is 4000. So it is like as previous. So what we have did here, like
So
first we are.
we have to make the changes. I have to take my word back. So the moment the new version is coming, we have to change the version here. I got it. Because if the developer push the new code, when that code is built, of course, it will be putting the new tag, means the new version. So that's the Docker file changes. Then we have to come and change the version here as well. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I missed it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so what we did here, we created two services. We named one as ecom backend. Here you can see first name is ecom backend and the other one is ecom frontend. So in the backend, we just write down the image name, which is in the our Git Docker Hub registry or repository, we just copy it from there, and we have to mention the port number where in which port this image will be running. And for front end, this is also same like the backend one. We are just mentioning the image name and the port name. This is as simple as it is.
Again, if you are typing the wrong, you just simply go to the chat GPT and fix it.
Yes, there might be like issues like for extra space or anything else. It will show us the error, and it is very normal for DevOps engineer that we are getting errors like in each and every line. Sometimes we get errors, and to solve those, this is another important work of ours.
Mhm.
So for running this Docker Compose file, the command is sudo docker compose up-d. This is the command for that. So let's check it out.
So now exactly your e-commerce is not running now. Means our front end backend is not running because we
It,
already.
it is in new servers, so there is no scope of running in this server. Okay, uh, as you can see that it is throwing a error, and we can understand by it is by reading that error that parsing YML line 6 could not find expected a colon. So it is showing errors. So let me copy that file. Let me check what is the error there. Just I am copying the file content. There might be any extra space or indentation. So let's check it out through ChatGPT. So you can see what is it saying? The YML file you provided has some indentation issues. It is also saying that yes, there is indentation issues. That means there are some using spaces consistently in the file. So I'm just copying this, and I'm just removing all the content from this file. And now I'm going to the insert mode again.
In the Beam file, if you want to do some action with the shortcut, you have to be out of the insert mode. And if you want to type anything, you have to be from your keyboard. You have to type. You have to hit press the I, the key, press the I. Then you can actually type anything. So now it is downloading from where? From the Docker Hub. So she has so what has been done here, this computer, she created a new machine. On this machine, she updated, and of course the Docker has been installed. By the way, if the Docker is not installed, Docker Compose will not work. Okay, so Docker need to install, then the second component Docker Compose, and the third one will be Docker Swarm. So she installed the Docker Compose and Docker. She also logged in, right? And that's the reason it did not ask. If you have not logged in, it will ask you Docker, the credential basically. And it shows how many steps need to be. Pulling means downloading. Downloading from the Docker Hub. So what we did, we just simply said Docker Hub. What does it do? It looks on your local machine, on your local server. It said there is nothing here. Means, and then it went to the Docker Hub. It start pulling, means start downloading on your local machine. After it is done, then it create actually the container now, as you can see, and then it started also. Means your server is up and running. So one command actually behind the scene, a large workflow happened already. So now you can see the front and back end is up and running. They're all only the Docker Compose.
Okay, now we can see that our container is created successfully and like created, started. So let me check it is working or not. So let's copy this new server IP address and let's hit 4000 port. You see.
Okay, it takes time to come. So here you need to remember, if your backend is not up and running, again the same problem will be happening. So make sure your backend is running as well. Of course, since we are in the Docker environment, as long as file is all good to go, then it should be fine, because you are controlling everything through the Docker file, and Docker file is actually the referencing into the Docker Compose. So it is working here. You can go to the Swagger to see if your backend is working or not.
Yes, sure.
So new IP 5000/docs. So it seems like your the Swagger is working. So it's fully running the whole thing on the Docker platform in using the Docker Compose. Okay.
So yes, it is also running. The backend is also running, and the frontend is also running, and the connection of both backend and frontend is established in the configuration file while deploying it. So our images are working properly. As we don't have the images in this machine or in this server, what we just do, we just install the Docker and Docker Compose, and we just write down the compose file where we just mention the images name of the Docker Hub repository, and then we just up the Docker Compose file. Now it's working. So it is working properly. We can see. Now,
Go ahead.
mhm.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, now we will move to our next content, which is Docker Swarm, and already.
Well, let's do the Docker Compose down, and you will see things will not work anymore.
Yeah, I'll show that. So before doing the Docker Swarm, we have to down it, the Docker Compose one, because we are creating the Docker Swarm file in this server. We can create it in another server, but I'm just making it down, and then we'll use this server for Docker Swarm. So for down it, we need to write down Docker Compose down. It will stop our containers, so we won't be able to reach to this application anymore using these IP addresses.
So if you have like in the Compose, if you have like a 10 services, mean that the 10 containers, they all will be shut down. Okay, so
It
it
is
run
removed.
all the bulk, and it actually shut down all bulk. So now it is not going to work anymore. Yeah. So it is stopped. You can try it out. So it will be just spinning. Try to do anything from the front end, okay?
So yes, we have down the Docker Compose. So now our application is not reachable through these IP addresses. So now in this server, we will show you how to create the Docker Swarm file. So for that, first we need to check that Docker Swarm is activated